Hello, everyone. Did you get your coffee? Everyone is sufficiently caffeinated to get started? Alright, so in the back there is, like I said, a coffee pot, so apologies about it getting started a little bit later than we expected. But there is some coffee, there are some other drinks, there's also some breakfast snacks. If you want to grab anything quick. Just so you know, over here on the left, there's the middle door is the men's bathroom, and the door in the corner there is where you can find the women's bathroom. So if you need that at any point during the day, they're available. So food, snacks, bathroom. Okay, so I think that covers the biology essentials, right? So. All right, so with that, I guess we'll get started with today. So let me invite everyone here. Or I guess we've already invited you, so thank you for coming. It's the better term, right? So thank you for coming here. My name is Karen Wasserman. I am the vice chair of the Allegheny County Green Party, which is the party that's right here in the Pittsburgh area. So yay! So, like I said, welcome, and I'm glad that you're here to the Green Party of Pennsylvania's annual convention thing here. We have a nice little program, so hopefully when you checked in, you got a rundown of what's in mind here. So you can see the agenda, but let me kind of tell you what our thoughts were for today. So Pittsburgh, I think, in many ways, is the epicenter of a lot of the problems that are facing our country, and really the whole world. Why do I say that? Pittsburgh's economy, going back decades, was built on dirty industry, things like steel. And we have the ability to transfer away from that to the Green Party's vision of renewable clean energy. More non-dirty technology, right? We can change how our economy works. However, a lot of our elected officials, especially in the Pittsburgh area, have already decided that they want to support more dirty industry. They want to have fracking. They want to bring in the petrochemical industry, and they want to return Pittsburgh back to what it was decades ago, when older people in my family described that the street lights had to be on during the day because the air was so dark. During the day, at lunchtime, during noon, that's how it was. The air was black from all the steel mills. And I don't know if the air will be black necessarily, but we already have in Allegheny County incredibly high rates of asthma, lung disease, lung cancer, and that was getting better. But now with these things coming in, we have the threat of problems with our health and problems with our water right? It's dirtying our air, it's dirtying our water. So that's the industry that is trying to grow, and grow in this whole region. Western Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland. This whole region is where they're trying to move the fracking, oil, petrochemical industry to. And so that's why we had the idea of inviting people from surrounding groups. So we've reached out to the Ohio Greens. We've invited Ian over there from the Maryland Greens. And we've also reached out to Howie from the New York Greens. We wanted to talk about not just Pittsburgh and not just Pennsylvania, but the whole region. We're facing, we're facing a really big thing that I think is really going to set the tone for the future of not just our country, but like I said, internationally. In case you didn't know, the Green Party actually is represented internationally through the Global Greens. There are actually Green parties in over 90 countries, I believe, around the world that are fighting for the same values and all that we are. And in many of those countries, they are doing really well. They're getting elected in the parliament. They're even becoming prime ministers and things. So it's our chance in the US, I think, to grow an independent movement that allows us to have those same values. So that's what we're here to talk about today, right? So basically the idea is we're gonna start off with our keynote special guest speakers who will come and talk a little bit about how they feel we can grow not just the Green Party, but the Green movement for a better future over the next couple of years. We'll talk about that and think about it a little bit during the lunch break. And then after lunch, we'll have a couple of panels where we'll talk a little bit more specifically about what do we think we need to do to grow the Green Party and grow the Green movement throughout the region. That includes, when I say the Green movement, that includes we have to run for office. We have to get people that are running for office and speaking out about these issues. But there's also more to being a movement than just running for office. There's activism work that we also need to be involved in. So part of our panels will discuss those issues about how can we join the forces of those two things, activism and electoral politics, to grow the movement. And then we'll break down into some workshops in the afternoon where we'll talk specifically about certain issues that are related to what's going on in the region. So there you go. There's a lot that's going on in the region, and I think those issues tap on a bunch of things, not just ecology, but how the laws are being used against us to prevent us from being able to control our own futures. They're seizing land for the pipelines and fracking, for example. People are getting arrested. That's going to be one of our, that's an important thing. There's an attempt at making protesting legal, actually, so that we invited a great speaker here to talk about that. So that's kind of our agenda here. So I guess that's it for my introduction here. So anything else I should? What do you think, Jay? Nope. So that's basically what we're doing here. So we're going to start with our conversations today, and then tomorrow is our business meeting, and you're all welcome to join us right back here again at noon tomorrow, where we'll kind of discuss what went on today, and not just tomorrow, but going forward into the future. So thank you again for coming, and I guess we'll get started after just a moment once we have our computer all set up. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Tim Runkle. I'm one of the organizers of this event and also treasurer of the Green Party Pennsylvania. Our next panel was set up by myself and a couple of the organizers, and I just need to explain a little about the genesis of this and kind of been looking a little bit deeper into it. So we were really excited when we looked around us and saw some very active Greens, some of which announced their name for presidency in the 2020 election, and we quickly reached out to those folks on Pennsylvania's border and invited them to speak on this panel. It was really easy to do that. We thought we could get folks to come because of how close they are, and the decision was made quickly because it was easy. we invited the folks to talk about, what's Green Party going to look like between now and 2020. It's going to be a wild election season, certainly. How are we going to focus on local actions, and really how are we going to grow the Greens at this time? And that's what the focus of the panel was intended to be. Now, I know when we got posted on social media and spread around a good bit, it really became apparent that it had attention, and this was a platform for Green Party presidential candidates to speak, and then Pennsylvania initiated this. And I want to apologize to the individuals that we didn't invite to this panel, since we recognized that what we were doing was kind of setting the pace of excluding individuals. We took a step back and said, how can we alter this and invite more folks to speak? So to that end, we altered the panel a little bit. We were able to reach out to there's 12 FEC filed candidates. I understand that there's 5 or 6 announced candidates with GPUS. The information is a little bit difficult to get up onto, but we were able to at least get another individual with us here today by phone. So it's going to look a little bit different than what was announced in the program, and there's very good reason for that, because what we don't want to do is show preferential treatment in that, and if it appears that way, I'm sorry. But what I'd like to do now is invite our panelist guests to join me at the table. First, I would like to introduce the person that's on the phone with me today. She's from California. She's been very active in the California Greens. And I learned this morning had actually visited Pennsylvania in 2007. Not a stranger to us by all means. So on the phone, we'll be working with Sivanam Kinamo, Christian Moawasiku Curry, sorry about that. And at the table, you're invited to come up right now, Dario Hunter from Ohio. Howie Hawkins, please come up, he's from New York. And Ian Schlackman from Maryland, please go ahead and join me. Thank you very much. This time, we're going to lead with having Sedema speak to us, to others here. She's provided us with 15 points that she would like us to have folks read aloud, and then we can answer questions to that as we go through the panel themselves. So, Alan, I believe I asked you first, and if you could, please come up and hold the mic and speak to my phone as well, so she can hear us. That would be excellent.
All right, so my name is Alan Smith, and I am the co-chair of the Pennsylvania Greens, and I am going to read the first 8 points of Senator Perry's platform. Number 1, ensure that the Green Party is qualified to appear on the ballot in all 50 states and voting territories. Number 2, secure 5% in the general election, national popular vote. The conservative estimate is 6.5 million votes, that is assuming 130 million votes are cast. Number 3, secure the largest number of Green Party members to seek political office, elected and appointed. Expand the Green Party story to include a large-scale, all-out campaign focused on candidate recruitment and support to run on green values. A suggested motivational statement is "We Green." Number 4, the principal aim of the Green Party is to build the capacity of every state and local party. We Greens must focus our. We're switching off in a minute. I'm going to read the first few, and then we only have 5 people. So Yep. The principal aim of the Green Party is to build the capacity of every state and local party. We must focus on campaign on building and strengthening each state party's development. We must enable every Green to boldly articulate our mantra. Our goal is to be listed as the contending party in all 50 states. Therefore, we aim the goal of long-term sustainability to build the Green Party long-term. And then, number five.
You could find another.
Great. Go ahead, Jacob.
Do you mind if I just speak to the room?
She needs to hear.
Okay.
All right, so ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting campaigns can be extremely helpful in building the Green Party at the state and local levels if Greens assume leadership in ranked choice voting states. Number 6, compel Green Party members to raise adequate funds to qualify for federal matching funds in the right states. Number 7, the Green Party will work to secure 15% polling level with Americans to secure inclusion of our presidential nominees' place at the nationally televised presidential and vice presidential debates, ensure equitable participation in national media and all other debate opportunities offered.
The Green Party will work to secure the highest votes received in 2020 by federal and state local slates from fellow American voters given to the party in a non-corporate funded political party. This strategy will ensure Green Party ballot access in many states. Our Green Party presidential campaign members must commit all Green Party presidential campaign members must commit and communicate to ensure the message continuity of the platform's special emphasis, 10 key values and pillars of people of color and groups.
All right, number 10 of the platform. The Green Party must raise enough money for national television and other media advertising. 11, enable each presidential candidate to conduct a minimum of 1 and preferably multiple campaign visits to all 50 states plus Washington, D.C. Number 12, organize Green Party monthly presidential debate series.
Number 13, describe the Green Party's commitment to a comprehensive and winning strategy to successfully contest the 2020 presidential national election and electoral college votes in November. Strategy based on facts below, and we'll make this full statement available to everyone. Number 14, Green Party online survey, campaign website, workshop, and panel. And I think that's it.
Just for us. Yes, thank you to the folks that agreed and provide that for us to sit down. That's very great. I would like to offer, if there's questions, we can answer that, but you will need to direct it to my telephone, so it's audible to sheet, and we can do that at this time, and before we move on. I do not have a selected order. I was playing that by ear. Okay, there will certainly be more time for questions at the end, and we'll move forward with this at this point. Dario, I suppose since you're immediately to my left, I'm going to hand the mic to you. Actually, before I do, Sam, is there anything you would like to say on behalf of yourself through my telephone before we move on?
things. First, I want to thank you all for recognizing that inclusion is critical. The second thing I want to say is we have to win together. We have to have a unity movement with our candidates as we did in 2008. We have to run as a team. By all means, someone's going to win. But we win when we have everybody running together towards a goal. The third thing is that women and folks of color gotta be important. If we recognize what the other corporate parties are doing, they're tapping in on folks of color and women. Let's not miss the way. I thank you, and I look forward to getting you all the 15 points. I'll email it to Tim, after this session, but let's think about what we can agree on to move forward as a unified Green Party. Thank you all.
My name is Dario Hunter, and I serve as a member of the Youngstown, Ohio Board of Education. And it's my pleasure to be here yet again, where my campaign began, here in Pittsburgh. I'd just like to point out the fact that we have so many wonderful Green Party activists here, and the word that comes to mind looking out in this group is responsibility. We're all here because we recognize a sense of responsibility for moving forward an agenda that is going to ensure a clean planet, the democratic rights are protected for our fellow citizens. It's going to ensure a greener and a fairer America. That's why we're all here, and that's why I'm here. Just to let you know a little bit about my background, for those of you who haven't met me, I'm a former environmental attorney. I've served as an educator, teaching high school English. I've served as an educational administrator, currently serve as a campus rabbi at the College of Worcester. I consider myself a human rights and an environmental activist. I've been very active in the Youngstown community, opposing fracking, which is an issue that is a big issue for us, and we share as an issue with Pennsylvania as well. This fracking boom that endangers our environment. And some of you may be aware of some of my recent human rights activities speaking out against the abuses against the Palestinian people, something that unfortunately cost me my job and livelihood as a rabbi at a synagogue in Youngstown. But at the end of the day, as many activists before me have realized that the job is just a job, the full-time job that you have as a human being is standing up for other human beings' rights. And so that's something that I'm proud to do. When we talk about 2020, when we talk about the priorities that we need to have in mind in order to win in 2020, we have to break this down in terms of values and in terms of strategy. The two depend upon each other, but we have to have strength in both of those areas. So I'm going to talk about values. I'm going to talk about platform to start with. And I think that in 2020, one of the things we have to have a very strong voice about is something that has gained a lot of currency recently, the Green New Deal. And when I mention the Green New Deal, I'm not talking about the watered-down version that some Democrats have offered. To their credit, some of them have kept some key plank aspects of the Green New Deal. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has kept in job and income guarantees and kept in single-payer health care and 100% renewable energy. At the end of the day, however, we know that what we offer as a party is a restructuring of the system in a way that will take out capitalist interest. You can't simply layer the Green New Deal and its promise of investing in a cleaner environment and providing energy-related jobs over the top of a system that's still engineered towards profits for the few. And then you have others, such as Cuomo in New York, who have offered a very watered-down version, promising 100% renewable energy in terms of electricity. Well, maybe in some other states that might be more impactful, but in this state, New York, it doesn't really amount to much in reducing the carbon footprint. And we also have to address the issue of public ownership of utility companies, which of course would help facilitate the efforts of the Green New Deal in terms of providing renewable energy by 2030, which studies have shown we can do, and studies have also shown we need to do. Climate change is a serious security issue for our country. Even our armed forces recognize that. Even the Pentagon recognizes that. They recognize that the effects of it, the destabilizing chaos, from food shortages to everything else you can imagine, and would result from the flooding, from all sorts of natural disasters, would be catastrophic. And so we have to be the ones to champion the change that's necessary to prevent that from happening. And of course, in a country where people are hurting for jobs, such as in my community, Youngstown, Ohio, a place that lost half its population over the past few decades due to a downturn in local industry, the steel industry, to be specific, much like here in Pittsburgh. Those jobs are sorely needed. And those who work in hazardous industries and are very much looking forward to getting out of those industries, those clean jobs are going to be very much needed. I've engaged in a national conversation, going from state to state, talking to communities about the issues that they face. And I'll never forget speaking to a retired union coal miner in West Virginia, who talked glowingly about the idea of having jobs once again due to such a Green New Deal. Despite how many people are talking about coal and this terrible term of clean coal, which makes absolutely no sense, the people who are interested in those industries supposedly coming back would just as soon be interested in having jobs for clean energy, if available, if provided, if we were able to take that profit motive out that has caused catastrophe and abuse of human lives, and the tragedy that occurred in West Virginia some years ago of 29 men being killed in a mine in the community that I visited, in fact, Whitesville, West Virginia. So when we talk about values, we talk about getting that message out there of what we offer that no other party offers, a true commitment to a real Green New Deal, coupled with this effort towards slashing the military budget, towards demilitarization, especially considering the fact that our armed forces are one of the biggest fossil fuel users. This deal is something that offers the American public something they've never had before. An opportunity to not only get a revitalization economically, to not only get a sense of economic justice through our just transition in renewable energy, but to also protect their planet and their neighborhoods. Which brings me to some other important values issues that we have to emphasize. We have to emphasize racial justice, and we have to emphasize how economic injustice and racism in education and racism in the environmental issues we face have affected our communities. I'm here in a community that is reeling from the effects of the inability to reach justice in the Antwon Rose case. That young man was shot in the back, and yet the police officer that did it gets off scot-free. We have to stand up for those who are voiceless. Our strategy as a party will be to take those values, the values in economic justice and racial justice, the values in terms of reshaping our sense of policing, in terms of ending America's interventionist activities abroad, and to put it forward in a strategy that goes into every state party, building up their efforts, building up local efforts, recognizing that, as they say, all politics are local, engaging in a year of activism leading up to 2020 so that people can point to the Green Party and say, this is the party that's standing up for the voices. And that is why my vote is going to the 2020 presidential candidate, and to all of the other candidates we encourage to stand up and run under the Green banner. We are going to do that alongside a robust ballot access effort that goes into every state to make sure that green is an option for every American. And we are going to do more than that. We are going to go out and reach out to those communities we don't traditionally see amongst the Green faithful. And as a proud African-American man, as an openly gay man, I have to say that in my travels and my visits, I have not seen as many diverse crowds as I would like. We need to go into those centers of political power that reach out to the African American community, go into the Black churches, go into those organizations and make those connections. I've done it in my community as the chair of the Mahoney County Green Party. I believe we can do it in every community. And I want to make clear when I talk about both values and strategy, there are many other platform points we can talk about. One of the reasons why I'm running is because now more than ever, when we face the threat of Black people being murdered on the streets, it is time for those marginalized, disenfranchised communities to be able to stand up and speak for themselves. In an interview in a Breakfast Club recently, Bernie Sanders was asked, facetiously somewhat, do we need another old white man running for president? He said, this man, this is the one that you need. He missed entirely the subtext of that question. The question was, why now, in 2019, with all that's happening, why don't we have the kind of country where those marginalized voices can stand up and speak for themselves, where the oppressed can stand up and speak out about their oppression? He missed that entirely, especially when he went on to say that he did not support reparations. The Green Party supports reparations. The Green Party supports the voices of the oppressed. The Green Party is the only party that is standing up for economic justice, for racial justice, for environmental justice in our country. And it is time that we as Greens come together around candidates and a candidate for the 2020 presidential election who will stand up and be the voice for the oppressed. Thank you.
I'm going to speak sitting down so I can read my notes, which I just scratched together. I was invited to speak 20 or 30 minutes on important questions, and now I find we have 5 minutes. And I'm wondering even why I'm here, because I'm not a candidate for president. A lot of people are asking me. I'm going to form an exploratory committee and see if there's support out there to run a very serious campaign. But I will try to deal with some of the questions that were raised. A little bit about me. Came up in the San Francisco Bay Area, got active in what we call the movement, the capital letters, civil rights movement, anti-war movement in the 1960s. And right from the start, when I saw the racism of the Republicans repealing the Fair Housing Act, the Rupture Fair Housing Act in 1964 by referendum, and the Democrats denying the Freedom Democrats from Mississippi seats at the Democratic National Convention, I asked myself, where's my party? I later learned John Lewis asked the same question at the 1963 March on Washington for Johnson and freedom. And my party turned out to be the Peace and Freedom Party in 68, the People's Party in 72 and 76, the Citizens Party in 1980, ran Barry Conner, the most prominent environmental scientist at that time. And I'm getting feedback, is that bothering you? Okay. And in 1984, I had helped co-found the Clamshell Alliance and the Nuclear Alliance. We did those mass occupations of the secret power on that site. Invited to a meeting to form the Green Party, St. Paul, Minnesota. The Citizens Party was having its last convention down the road. And I've been a Green Party organizer ever since. I made my living as a construction worker in the 70s and 80s, a co-op organizer in the 90s, and a Teamster until last year when I retired. And I've been asked to run for president before, and now I have an excuse because I don't have a time clock. So I feel like I'm being drafted again. I did get drafted during Vietnam. I was in the Marine Corps. So the kind of campaign that I've talked to people about is a campaign that will build the Green Party and run on an eco-socialist program. And I'm going to focus on program. And you should read an interview that Kyle Kuno did on the Green New Deal. And he had a slogan in there. He said, it's eco-socialism or death. And it's really true. We know how bad the climate is. In the next couple of decades, we're going to see mass extinctions, ecosystems collapse, agricultural failure, hunger, poverty, tens of millions of climate refugees, and war for what's left. And then by the end of the century, scientists tell us, because of ocean acidification and climate warming, the phytoplankton are dying off. They produce 2/3 of the world's oxygen. Animal life is threatened because they lack of oxygen by 2100, the scientists tell us. The insects are collapsing. That means ecosystems collapse. It's not just carbon pollution. It's a whole lot of planetary boundaries that this capitalist system is violating. So I want to address two themes briefly, 1 minute each now. And that's racial justice and eco-socialist Green New Deal. And we're thinking the right one on those. We got to pick, some issues. And I would submit to you that the same attitudes and institutions that lead to the oppression of human by human are the same institutions and attitudes that create the exploitation and destruction of nature. So if we're going to reharmonize human with human, or humanity with nature, we've got to reharmonize human with human. And racial injustice and oppression in this country, even within the movements for progressive social reform, has been the Achilles heel of those movements, because we've been divided, and the rich have ruled because of that. Our whole history. There's a book every Green should read called Reluctant Reformers by Robert L. Allen. He covers the history. I read the first 2 chapters of Black Reconstruction by W. B. Du Bois, and you didn't understand why this is so important. And that's my opinion on racial justice. I would just say, one of the slogans I heard coming up was from the Black Panther Party. He said, Black power for Black people, yellow power for yellow people, red power for red people, brown power for brown people, white power for white people. I even had kind of problem with that, because it sounded a little bit like the claim. But their point was, the only reason racists can discriminate is because they have power. So we got to have community control of the police, the schools, housing, and businesses. And when the reparations discussion begins, when HR 40, the reparation bill passes, so that's what it costs for a study, I believe they will conclude that collective reparations are a way to make the Black community whole, given its 400 history of oppression. And that's because if you just write a check and give it to people and they spend it in the capitalist system, the racial capitalism we got will reproduce the same inequalities. So my 5 minutes is up. I've got a lot to say about eco-socialist Green New Deal. I was the first Green New Deal. I ran in 2010 for governor in New York, in the US. So Greens in Europe had done it before. And I'll just say this, we gotta raise the bar. We can't just deal with the energy sector. We gotta deal with manufacturing, agriculture, transportation, urban systems, and rebuild the whole society. And we can't do that under capitalism. The market won't do it, private incentives won't do it. The Koch brothers and Exxon are not gonna leave 2/3 of the oil, gas, and coal in the ground. We already have wells and mines for it. That's what we got to do to have a 50-50 chance of staying below 1.5 degree increase in the global temperature, Celsius, which is seen as the safe boundary. It's actually lower than that if you believe James Hansen. It's 1 degree. We passed it. So it's eco-socialism or death, as Connie said. And if you're interested in being part of an exploratory committee, and telling me I should go, I got some suggestions. Thank you.
Try not to trip anyone here, sorry. Well, I was going to use the excuse that I'm really tired because I was driving all night, but I think that applies to everyone here. And then I heard Howie came down from New York, 7-hour drive, and I said, well, I can't use that excuse anymore. So, good morning. How's everyone feeling? Good? Ready to talk about Green Party? Yes. I'm Ian Schlackman. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Been involved with the Green Party for about 5 years now. I've run for every position you could think of: Congress, governor, city council. I've helped other Greens win their race as well. My own good friend, Reverend Annie Chambers, helped her win her city council, her RAD delegate race for Baltimore RAD delegate. And she's now one of the few sitting delegates we have in Baltimore City, which is very, very exciting. And the reason I did that was because I actually ran for city council myself in Baltimore City. And I thought, after running for Congress against Dr. Ruppersberger, I said to myself, well, it's going to be easy to run for city council. Turns out that was the year that we found out a city council seat in Baltimore City cost $100,000. And Baltimore City is so corrupt, we don't have a school. So we look back, my whole party, Baltimore party, looked back and said, what can we win? Where can we make a win? We can't raise $100,000, not going to happen. Where can we win? And we went back into a little public housing community called Douglas Homes, where there was an older woman who was a Black Panther. She's still, I gotta correct myself, she'll slap me if I call her that. She is still a Black Panther. She never gave up being a Black Panther. She's still fighting for housing rights over there. And basically they denied her having an election to run her little housing authority, public housing area down there. for years. And I watched them literally have people against her sitting there in the polling booth, casting votes the other way. Literally, there was someone barking like a dog saying, vote for the other person. And we had to get the Green Party involved. Myself, some of you know that, Kevin Teese and Margaret Flowers, we came down, we marched into City Hall, and we said, what are you doing? What kind of illegal election practices are these? And that's how we got Reverend Chambers elected. And I tell that story because that's a little bit about me and who I am. The Green Party has got to start winning down ticket races. That is what I am about in the 2020 election cycle. Now, you might ask, why am I running for president then if I think that? I'll tell you why. Because every single time we run a presidential candidate, it's the one time we see a green on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and they have us on there and they go, wow, this is great, you're running for office, but you're pathetic and you'll never win, and your whole cause is pathetic, you're all just a bunch of Democrats and don't understand what you're doing. So my whole platform, that's why I handed this out a little earlier, is about making sure that we spend the few precious minutes of airtime and life that we're going to get as top ticket candidates, making sure that down ticket candidates get some of that spotlight. We have got to focus as a party at the grassroots that we are from. It's so important. We're never going to build anything. And I'll tell you why I know this. This is the way I think. I declared for this seat when I was 33. December of last year, and now I'm 34, and I'll be 35 by the time this race comes up. So I'm just in there for president. And I'm a millennial, and I work with the DSA quite a lot, like a lot of other millennials. And I think so many people have come over to work with the Democratic Socialists of America because they see them winning down-ticket races. And I was with one of the down-ticket, I was on the National Electoral Committee for the DSA when we actually surprisingly won a seat for Lee Carter in Virginia. It wasn't even on our radar, but suddenly he won, and it was national news. And you know, DSA claims a big victory. I was part of that. You know, it was a big victory. But you know, so I mean, the DSA likes to keep one foot outside the Democratic Party, which is great. I always make sure they disagree, and I do what I can to help there. But I think that the reason that people are flocking to that area is because this isn't the kind of socialist revolutionaries in the streets you're talking about. We've got a lot of those in Baltimore. I'm good friends with those. Whenever there's a police violence or something like that, they're out in the streets. I'm usually with them. They're fantastic to work with. But I think the DSA is a little bit different. People want to see electoral victories. We've got to make sure we can show them that we can do electoral victories down ticket. And so I think the strategy for us as the Green Party has got to be the socialist alternative strategy of electing Kshama Sawant, a national strategy focused on a few winnable races nationally that we focus on, we give press to, we make sure people know about them, we hype them up as much as we possibly can. You know, so how amazing would it be if I go on CNN or something like that and I say, well, you know, yeah, maybe you're right, I'm here talking about disarmament, talking about the Green New Deal, talk about this kind of stuff, but I really want you to know about Olivia Faison. Olivia Faison is a winnable race, that's what I'm here to talk about today. And they're gonna go, we didn't prep on this, what is this guy talking about? But at least people will know all across the country, send your dollars in for this small little race happening in Pennsylvania. If we had this kind of infrastructure built out already, we could be winning down ticket races all across the country. I must say, I do agree with one of the earlier speakers that said we can get 5%, 10%, 15%. I mean, heck, if we get 1%, that would be amazing. And frankly, I don't want to fight with the Democrats. That's not what we did in Baltimore, and that's not how we won our seats. We don't. This country has a plurality, I think it's called, of people that are not registered of either party. The non-voters and the people that are registered Democrat and Republicans is the biggest potential party out there. If you're spending your time arguing with Democrats, you're wasting your time. The time we have to spend is knocking on doors with low-income communities, of working-class areas, and areas that are poor, and areas that don't normally vote, and let them know that we represent you. That's what we did in Douglas Homes in Baltimore City. That's how we got our one seat there. We've got to replicate that all across the country, in rural areas where they're also being ripped out of their homes. Public housing is under attack all over the country, and neither political party is doing anything about this. And also in the Green Party, we can go so much further than the other candidates can in their Democrat and Republican Party, because we could do things like Medicare for all, fantastic idea. great idea. Universal healthcare, great idea. But you're taking the profit motive, you're taking the industry, the insurance industry, out of that whole sector of healthcare. Maybe we do that for housing. No more big housing companies on Wall Street. Get rid out of there. Nationalize housing industry. Nationalize public housing. Make sure actually everyone has a right to housing. Maybe do that with agriculture. Do we really need Bayer and Monsanto and other big ag companies running our whole agricultural industry? Why can't we do that ourselves? Why can't we do that through a cooperative system? So these are the kinds of things that I think the Green Party can call for nationally, and I know that people are going to be excited about them when we run nationally about these. But I also think that the number one issue this race is about strategy. It's got to be about strategy. Yes, we have to get ballot access in every single state. That's very, 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 very difficult. Yes, we have to raise a lot of money to qualify public matching funds. That's also difficult. But we've got to start thinking about down-ticket greens and how we're going to make sure that we get some wins this cycle. Because I can tell you right now, there are so many people out there that are radicals of all different kinds, socialists, anarchists, even just people to just see the writing on the wall. I think the Green Party has moved forward in terms of what we consider radical because we know that the environment in our world is in so much trouble. If we don't move in the next 4 or 5 years on climate change, we're toast. I mean, I think everyone here agrees on that. But what we can focus on, the other candidates can't, is we can also go as far as to say, well, we'll actually nationalize the industry, okay? We got plants closing down in Youngstown, we got plants closing down in Baltimore. Let's nationalize them. Let's turn the whole thing over. That's what Kashana Sawan says in Seattle. We should be doing the exact same thing every single area of the country. When Democrats sell our public housing off to the highest bidder, we should be saying, no, this should be owned by the people. It should be owned by us. We should be taking action. We should be showing people that, no, we're not going to sit there and let it go without a fight. So I think there's opportunities all around the country, in every single different area of the country, to actually show that we're a united front for activist communities, but that we're also going to make sure that we have winnable races that we can go through as well. We've absolutely got to show that it's time. And this is why I am, I mean, could I do this without running for president? I guess. But I think the most important part is that we've got to take over the National Green Party and say, we have to, as a Green Party, this is what I plan to do if I win the nomination, we have to find winnable races down ticket across the country in a fair and equitable manner that everyone agrees to. I mean, heck, the DSA just agreed to support Bernie with a couple of different emails and polls across the whole freaking electorate. It wasn't that hard to do. I'm pretty sure the Green Party could do that as well with a couple of down ticket candidates. So we've got to come together as a party and be more democratic, more open, have a bigger dialogue with our down ticket members. You never hear from GPUS talking to the locals one-on-one like that in a survey or something like that. And I think it's also time to say, here's our down ticket candidates, here's who we're pushing, and finally get them the national attention that they deserve. Because if we don't pick a couple of candidates that can actually win, and then show the world that we have a party. How many people here play like RPGs or like action platform kind of games? If you're at level 1 out of the gate, do you go fight the end boss? No, you don't do that in the game. You get slaughtered. We've got to farm. We've got to get out there. We've got to grow the party. We've got to make sure people actually know that we're going to bulk up. We're not going to win this cycle. We're not going to win the next cycle. Maybe we'll win the previous cycle. I love to say about this too. The other part of the two-party system that I love to talk about is that I'll promise this is that there was this major scandal last year with the Democratic Party. So I actually do think that there is a path to victory for the Green Party, but it would involve basically a major scandal happening in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, which I don't think is that far away from happening. When people ask me is it possible to win? I'm like, yeah, it's possible to win. Look, just get one more hacker out there, one more group of people to getting both parties thrown under the bus. So I mean, we do have to be prepared that our agenda is going to become a more mainstream agenda. We also have to be prepared for the fact that we've got to be part of the dialogue in a way that makes sense. We have to be part of the dialogue. We have to be part of the dialogue in a way that people are going to be attracted to the party and we're going to grow. Because frankly, I don't think we're growing fast enough to maintain the Green Party in the future. And that's why I'm doing this, because I want to make sure we have a Green Party to come for years. We don't have a multi-party system in the US. We're not really a democracy. All right, with that, I think I could get the stage while it's done. All right, thanks everyone, I appreciate it.
Thank you much. I would like over the next couple of minutes to open up for questions, and we can figure out a way to engage the folks up here on the table. So any questions, you're going to have to come to the mic for me.
You guys go line up over there.
So I'm in total accord with what everybody here is saying and their positions, their vision. Part of that vision, I think, includes, and you kind of alluded to it, that it requires a change of vision of our economy, of our social structure, of our society. How do you put that out there in a way that people can actually hear that without going, "Oh, that's just crazy. That's never going to happen. It's not even a reality. We should even think about that." Whereas I think that's exactly the reality that we need to be thinking about. You present it.
Let's just pass it down real quick.
So the question of how you present that, it seems on the face of it to be a very complex one. You're facing a number of different political perspectives that would be seemingly very much against it. And I have to say, experience is a great teacher. That's part of why I'm on this national tour, speaking to communities all over the country. And the last one that I spoke to in West Virginia, you'd think would be probably the most opposed to this idea that we're advancing. I consider myself a socialist, and I consider myself someone who's advancing the idea of a system that is free of that kind of profit motive, that kind of capitalist interest. The truth of the matter is, the people are already there. They've seen the negative effects of it. And the example that I gave of those 29 men that died in the mine, that community that otherwise sees itself very right-wing, very supportive of that political perspective, they've seen the deadly effects of capitalist abuse, and they're ready. They're ready through many generations of union activity, through many generations of experience. They're ready to say, let's come together and let's do what we've always done as a community. Recognize that we need to help each other out. Recognize that when we help each other out with universal health care, that's just another manifestation of the way that we've done that for generations, neighbor helping neighbor. When we provide an education for all Americans, K through 12 and college level, that we're doing just that. We're helping the advancement of each other and the advancement of a country as a whole. And so these platform points which ultimately relate to this socialist view that we have as a party, that we are going to aid each other as a country and uplift each other as a country. Instead of supporting a profit motive that has used and abused our fellow citizens, that is fed into racism, that is fed into economic injustice. I think much of the country is already there. And so in presenting it, what you'll need to do is to reach out to those communities that have been abused. You'll need to connect with them about the ways in which capitalism has unfortunately abused them. Have those hard conversations with them about how our efforts are going to change that by providing jobs that actually look out for their safety, by providing a clean energy option, by providing a system that actually is there for them when they're ailing, when they're in need, and connect their unfortunate pain at the hands of capitalist abuse to the caring platform planks that we have as a party. That's going to take footwork. That's going to take making those real human connections with people. It's something I've committed to do as a candidate, but it's something we all have to commit to doing as a party. And I'm confident that the people here are committed to do that, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So to echo some words mentioned earlier, let's all work together and let's make that happen. Let's get the message out and let's connect with those communities who are hurting.
Well, when you talk about a vision, I think we need a positive description of what that vision is. I think the term eco-socialism is a positive in terms of this alternative system. And I think you can get people to understand what we're talking about by linking the positives to the negatives we get from capitalism. What are the negatives? Before, Capitalism is anti-democratic. It's ruled by a capitalist oligarchy. And most people understand that intuitively. You cannot have real political democracy without economic democracy, which is what real socialism should be about. And then you can go into, how it works if you're in a working class, or how it works in the public enterprise. But the point is, you have a say in the economic decisions that affect your life. And you're going to have a more egalitarian distribution of income and wealth so that the oligarchy can't dominate through economic means. And then you can explain another problem with capitalism is it exploits people. You do not get the full fruit of your labor. You get a fixed wage, and the capitalist takes everything else. And that's why we have growing economic inequality and insecurity. The so-called golden age after World War II was a very unique circumstance, and it's 50 years old now. We're seeing the real capitalism over the last 50 years. Third thing is, capitalism is not sustainable. It's killing us. I keep going back to Kali Kuno's slogan. It's eco-socialism or death. Capitalism is structured around competition for profits and growth. It creates a dynamic of blind, relentless growth. It's like cancer. There's no sense of balance or reciprocity with the biosphere. So we can't live with capitalism. We can't survive. And then the fourth thing is the competitive economic structure breeds international competition between capitalist states. And their nuclear arm, Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Israel, US, France, England. And most of those countries' nukes are on hair trigger alert. We've come so close to blowing up the world by mistake. And we have a policy in the US of, we don't have a policy of no first strike. And now we're getting out of these nuclear agreements like the Intermediate Nuclear Force Agreement that Putin and Trump just got out. We're into a new nuclear arms race. We're spending $1 trillion modernizing the nukes, and they want to use them as tactical weapons. That's the force doctrine now. Nuclear annihilation is hanging over our heads. And I'll tell you, the first thing that radicalized me, I told you about 64 when I saw the racism in both parties. When I got to kindergarten, they told me to dive under the desk because that's how I'm going to protect myself from a nuclear bomb. I thought the adults were crazy. I said, why don't you get rid of those things? So, now it's up to the Green Party to do it.
I tell you, I work with the Green Party because, we've got folks like Hallie, folks like Jill that have been championing the Green New Deal for a long time. And, I think that even though we're not getting the credit for it, I don't think we'll ever get the credit for it in the mainstream media, so just let that go. I think that you see the success of the Green New Deal now coming out of the Democratic Party and making its way to the floor of the House, even in this very, very watered down resolution. Is still a testament to the power of what we're doing here today. What we're doing here, what we're talking about, the ideas that we're talking about, that we come to consensus on, we choose to champion in 2020, are going to become probably left-wing Democratic talking points for the next couple of years. Now, whether that should be our greatest achievement, I don't know, but I'll leave that for you to decide. But I do want to just put that on its head for a second. What we're doing here, what we're talking about, they are listening, whether they want to admit it or not. So that's just one little thing. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that, I don't think it's that hard. When I was running for Congress, I would talk about a universal basic income. I founded a nonprofit, universal basic income. I've talked to, I gave out this handout a little bit earlier to look at some of the stuff I've done, some of the other side here. One of the things I've done is I do a lot of international talks on basic income and the points of basic income. I described it as just, what if we had Social Security to everybody? Everyone over 18 has Social Security. What's the problem with that? And I had Dutch Ruppersberger on stage, very, very conservative Democrat. He was like, well, seniors work hard. Why would you give money to everyone? He was completely rattled by the idea, had no idea what he was talking about. And now you've got a Democrat now running on universal basic income, Andrew Yang, and everybody's pretty much going to be asked about it when they do run for office in the Democratic Party. So I think that, what we're doing, what we're talking about, it's not that hard to explain to folks. Medicare for all, taking the profit motive out of the health insurance industry. Why not do that in other industries? Why not do that with agriculture? Why not do that with housing? A human rights-based economy. Now you're talking about non-capitalism. You're talking about anti-capitalism. We really need money to rule our lives. We really need motivation of capital to rule everything day to day. and just go further and further into this rabbit hole, pretty much as far as they can go. And I'll say this because I'm a millennial and I'm a little biased. I think millennials are the most open to this, and the generation after them, because they know that if we don't change our system, we will not have a planet here in the future. So that's all I gotta say about that.
I'm sorry, guys, but can I get a refresher on the question so I can repeat it? Just in,
Yeah, so the question really had to do with how one expresses the sort of vision that the Green Party candidates are talking about into a room full of people who want to know how you're going to pay for it. How you going to decide how's that really work in reality? It doesn't seem like a reality to most people. And then at least that's my experience when I talk to people. So that was what this was about.
That is.
Okay, if you look at, I don't know if you have an overhead speaker or not, but everything must be built. We have to build from the base. So it's figuring out who exactly are the 250,000 members we say we have. 2, asking, what is it you want? Why are you green? How can we build this? From that, we just build on our sustaining. We have a sustainable program that people like myself give money every month. If people buy into where we're heading, we would get more people to donate consistently in a bigger amount. And as I couldn't tell who said it, but the unvoting Americans are a large percent. We can inspire them to join us as well. It's just about building a relationship. And part of what we have to do as Green is ask questions of each other, of other Americans, and then do what it is we want. Our nation is going to be 300 years old in less than 57 years. We've never had a full accounting of what's happened, where we are, and where we want to be. So for us in our campaign, if you saw, those points have been gathered from 500 people. I'm not sure what you're seeing, but I'll send the 15 points that we've got impacted already from 500 people. So what we want to do is agree on what we can agree on what 2020 means for us and build. I do fundraising. So it's not impossible. Remember, I don't know if you know that, in 2016, our campaign had enough to go to 41 states. That was green money, not corporate money. We can do it. We've done it before, and we had to help the corporate-funded Democrats for a recount doing David Cox time. We've done it. We can do it again. It's just thinking, organizing, planning, and supporting the vision. I hope I answered it.
You have, thank you. Another question, please.
I'm a senior, and I hear about this Medicare for all. Medicare for all still includes the insurance companies. Those of us that are seniors, my insurance went way up because I went on Medicare, and I have to have a supplement. The supplement's almost $200 a month, and it involves the insurance companies. With international students for years, they have universal health care in their countries. You're all covered because you go to that country. I say don't say Medicare for all because it still includes Anthem Blue Cross or whatever else, whatever other company that you might have. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. The other question I have is, do you realize how many Greens have been winning around the world? How many? Greens have been winning around the world. In Norway, it's almost 250, won in the last election on Norwegian Americans. I just looked that up. But I'm sure there are probably a lot of Greens that have won all over the world. But as a new Green, I've only been a Green for a year. I've been told Greens never win. Well, that's not true. So if you know the statistics on all those other countries and the places where they have won, I think that could help.
And I've been active in the African Federation of Green. We had the successes, and we won that last time. We're having successes across the nation. across the continent. So my focus has been building African groups because Africans are the largest Black immigrant group coming to the U.S. So that's been my focus, but I agree with you. Our campaign will commit to working on putting those statistics together because we are a global movement and a global political force. I'm a single payer.
Okay, ready to go. Thank you, and you can pass this down the line once more.
Okay, Greens winning. I really want to touch on this because I ran for governor. I got this all the time. Oh, you know, we don't have any Greens that we want in Maryland ever. It's like, no, that's not true at all. We have a Green sitting right now in the city council. We have a Green sitting we have a Green in another small town. Where someone on my team actually used to be one of the staffers at GPUS, and he said one of the biggest issues was that when a Green down ticket would win, they wouldn't like call the national office and say, hey, I won. We'd have to contact them and find them and figure that out and then build a press release months afterwards so people don't looking at the elections. So there's a real lack of focus and a real lack of coordination amongst GPUS and way down ticket Greens that are in winnable races and are winning races. You know, if you're winning a race in a small town as a mayor or a city council person, you first call us in the GPUS national, you first call us to your constituents. So right there, I think that's a big disconnect. And I think we should be showing a much stronger force nationally than we currently do. So Medicare for all. So there is a major Medicare for all. I think there's a major Medicare for all organization in my state run by Dr. Margaret Flowers, some of you may know her. And I believe that they're now calling it Medicare for All Plus. She's gonna kill me if I get that wrong, because there are very, very large differences. I can answer the basic question that they give to the folks in CNN. Do I want Medicare for All with companies in it? Absolutely not. In fact, I'm not for calling it Medicare for All. I am for calling it universal health care because I believe that the goal of whatever law or hopefully constitutional amendment we create should be that everyone deserves health care, end of story, kind of like what we do for education. Everyone deserves a full education. And you know, if the schools aren't able to provide it, then they have to find resources to bring them in. Same thing for healthcare. It's got to be government run. It has to be universal. It's as simple as that. But I know this is an ongoing conversation. I think we're going to see this really develop over the next couple of months. I am happy that we have advocates in my home state that I can go back to and ask about these kinds of questions. And I also have a website too, schlackman.com. If you want to take a look, we have a bit of our platform already up. And we also have a 50-state strategy too, if you want to take a look at some of that stuff on there.
Yeah, Ian makes a point that we all should be making, and that is Greens do win. We have, I think, about 150 on the list that the National Party has. We've had more in the past than over 200. But there are 500,000 offices in this country. Most of them local. Many of them, you know, there are not enough people running to even fill them. The Greens should have a lot more than 150, but we can win. I got 48% partisan race for city council in Syracuse in 2011, and the only reason I got beaten was the Democrats. There was not much going on down off here. They sent an army into this little inner city district, and you know, I lost by 96 votes. And you know, we have a base in Syracuse, like 24 to 35% consistently. The Republicans are the third party in our city. But the Medicare for all, I'm with you. I'm on Medicare. I know exactly what you're talking about. I pay Part D every month, and I haven't bought the Medicare Advantage, and I get different things that are not covered. And I haven't bought Part D, so I don't take any drugs, but you know, if I had to, I have to pay for that. Now the movement for the national health insurance is what we used to call it, Medicare for all. It just says National Improved Medicare for All. That's the slogan, right?
I pay 5 times as much for Medicare as I pay in California for Obamacare. It's like $500 a month here, and they never cover everything, so you still have to always make extra money.
Yeah, it could be a lot better program. Now, I'm for a community-controlled national health service. Back in the early 70s, we had 3 options. We had Obamacare, which was in the Nixon bill. We had national health insurance, which is the Kennedy bill. And then we had the Dellums bill for a national health and service, where clinics and hospitals are publicly owned. Providers, doctors, and nurses and whatnot are on salary. They're not on fee for service. They're not out there making profits. It's a way to control costs. The critique at that time, we called it the Great Leap Sideways. You know, kind of like the Great Leap Forward in China. This was the Great Leap Sideways because you set up a public insurance system that feeds it, has the private industry, the drug companies and the hospitals, for-profit hospitals, the doctors, you know, trying to make a lot of money with their practices, feeding at the public profit. If you want real cost control, it's got to be a community-controlled health service. And what this bill provided for was locally elected health groups, like school groups, 1/3 from the providers, 2/3 from the citizenry. And then they federated at the regional, state level, and the national level for overall planning. So it was bottom up. That's how eco-socialism, like democratic eco-socialism, all structured the energy sector, the overall planning system from the bottom up, with locally elected boards and federated. Now that Dellums bill, Barbara Lee carried it forward until the Obamacare debate got going, and they dropped it. And the nonprofit industrial complex, they kind of got behind it. The Dellums bill was largely written by the Medical Committee for Human Rights, who were the doctors that patched us up during the Civil Rights Movement and any Vietnam War movement. And then they wanted to change the healthcare system. It's a great bill. It's called the Josephine Butler bill. If you look at some of the bills that Barbara Lee put in, you can find them in the comments. But I think 2012 was the last session she put it in, maybe 2010. The Greens ought to bring that back because we give community control, democratic accountability. We say in the Medicare for All proposal, all medically necessary services, but there's some on the margins. It's going to be a board appointed from the top down by politicians who are, right now involved by the special interests. So we need a democratic structure, and the Medicare National Health Insurance doesn't provide that. So I think we can do better than the National Health Insurance Medicare for All bill. At least we can make a discussion of it, and like we used to have before. What happened? I mentioned the nonprofit industrial complex. They got together in 1986 in New Hampshire and had a meeting, and they said, "We're going to drop the Dellums bill because we think insurance is more doctor friendly because they can treat it in public trial, and we'll call it single payer, which is kind of a wonky term, but it's taken hold. But I don't think people understand what it means. So anyway, I'm for a community controlled national health service."
Thank you. I have to concur with this idea of having public choice and voice in a national health service. I think that ultimately when we talk about providing health, one of the key things for Greens who are eco-socialists, take that profit motive out of healthcare. And that's been so damaging to so many lives. The issue of Obamacare has been brought up, and I have to say, as someone who was raised most of my life without insurance, and I remember how much of a marvel it was for us to finally realize we are insured, because my father, who happens to be an immigrant from Iran, he worked his way up through what some people call the American dream, from being a dishwasher to being a bus driver, which was a great come up for him because by that time he had a union job with healthcare. And it was the first time we ever had that. I was already in my teens and already off on my way to college by the time that happened. We're looking now at Obamacare and the premiums that it offers, even with tax subsidies, that really don't offer you much in terms of healthcare, in terms of benefits. We discussed earlier this idea of having to pay out massive amounts regardless because of deductibles. At the end of the day, what do you really get? I think a lot of people have found out, unfortunately, not much, and that's because it's subject to the vagaries of the marketplace. When we talk about healthcare and what's been done in other countries, I can talk about that in a personal context because my legal career has spanned 2 countries. I did part of my legal education in Canada, and I was privileged to work under an attorney who dealt with health law cases, and I got to see firsthand some of the pitfalls of Canada's universal healthcare system. I think you need to take this idea of having universal single-payer healthcare, and you need to combine that with a democratic system that ensures the public has a voice to protect fellow members of the public against potential abuses or against potential negligence. In some cases with a big C in the Canadian system. So I think that's a good springboard to talk a bit about the Green Party and international issues, fortunes abroad. Yes, there are Greens who are very successful abroad. The Green Party in New Zealand is an example. You mentioned Norway as well. And I think we need to make a concerted effort to connect with them, not only for mutual electoral success, but also to learn from them. And that's part of why I brought up that example of Canada. Canada has a pretty robust Green Party. They have one member of Parliament who is a Green and is someone who's very outspoken in terms of Green values. I think we need to make those connections. We need to build those bridges. And as a part of that effort to make international connections about shared values and with other parties that share our values, my tour, which is already a national one, is expanding into an international one. Beginning of April, I'm actually going to be taking a trip to Israel, Palestine. I won't be the only international stop on my tour. I think it's important not only to get that sense of context of foreign policy, but also to connect to other parties and other individuals in other parts of the world that have done what we're attempting to do, that are doing what we're attempting to do, and to get that sense of collegiality and connection with those shared values and shared efforts. So to respond to your question, yes, we need to take strength from those efforts internationally, and domestically, we need to take strength from a commitment to community buy-in, community input into a universal single-payer healthcare system that is completely devoid of that capitalist profit motive.
Thank you. I'm thinking we got one more question, if we can do that, and then I think that'll take us to 12:30, which we were going to break for some potluck before getting back to the workshop. So can I get one more question, please?
Hi, good morning. My name is Andrew. My question is in regards to the issue of getting the Green Party more exposure in the media. So we have known to be locked out from a lot of media outlets, debates, and everything. My question to everyone on the panel is, do you think getting arrested for the sake of exposure is is a good thing for the party or a bad thing for, our public image?
Thank you. So Jen, would you like to answer that first?
I'd like to answer that question as asked, because the question asked was about getting arrested for exposure. I don't agree with the idea of just getting arrested for the sake of exposure as a publicity stunt. I know many green activists and many activists in causes that share common values with us have gotten arrested supporting the causes they believe in, supporting people and individuals they believe in, advocating on behalf of the human rights of all. I support that absolutely. Civil disobedience is something that I think we all have to support as people who are behind these causes, the causes of people who've been oppressed by this hyper-capitalist society for generations upon generations. So I absolutely agree with that, and I think the people who do that, who engage in efforts to support the rights of others and get arrested in civil disobedience, I think that's a good image for the party, because the image we want is, as a party, we want an image of being a party that stands up for people's rights no matter what. And we don't just want that image. We want that image to reflect who we actually are and what we're doing. And now connected to that aspect, that issue, is the larger question of how we get media exposure. I have to speak from experience on this. As I mentioned, I'm a member of the Youngstown Board of Education. And one of the things that I've realized over my tenure is that I've gotten a lot more media exposure than someone in that position typically usually gets. And the reason for that is because I'm very outspoken on issues of education. We're under a state takeover in Youngstown. They put in place a takeover with a CEO who has total administrative and managerial control over the public have no say over the education of its children or where its tax dollars go. Massive amounts of money are being spent with no accountability. And my approach to that has not been to say, I'm going to get out there and get some media attention. My approach to that has been to be loud and vocal and to advocate on behalf of the rights of the public who have been disenfranchised. And what I've noticed is that when you do that, when you are loud and you are vocal and you are active, you can get that attention. And it just so happened that I have been getting attention for those efforts, and that attention has also attached itself to the efforts that I'm doing with the Green Party. I think that you have to have that conviction, that strength of character to get out there and to be clear and to be loud about the message you have on behalf of the best interest of the public. I'll also note that as a larger strategy for our party, individual chapters, local chapters, state chapters, when they are out there getting things done to advance green values and green interests, I believe they're at their best in terms of capacity and ability to attract media attention. And that's why I've called for a year of action. I've called for local chapters, for state chapters to get out there and to engage in purposeful projects. This is not, of course, assuming there aren't chapters. There already are. I know there are very active chapters across this country, but there are some chapters that need additional motivation, additional efforts. And my local chapter in Mahoning County, Ohio, we're engaging in an effort to get nonpartisan municipal elections in that area. Why? Because they just recently snuck in a measure to end term limits, and they can keep Democratic councilpersons and elected officials in office forever. Forever, folks. Now, in Ohio, we lost our ballot status as a party. And that also affects our competitiveness. But what we want through that effort is for people to be able to judge candidates on their merits, and so that Greens can actually get in and advance those green values. I happen to be the only elected Green in office in the state of Ohio, and we want that to change. And we're going to change that by advancing the shared values that we have from a public that is tired of parties who have been abusing them for generations upon generations. We know there's a lot of support for that effort, and there's a lot of common support for that. We know that when we are successful, that the attention that comes from us advancing those green values will advance the green effort. And I want to see that kind of effort happen all across the country, in county parties, in city parties, in state parties. That, I believe, is going to be key to getting that media attention. And I'd like to note, as someone who's gotten a lot of media attention lately, as unpleasant as it has been, considering my efforts in terms of advocacy on behalf of human rights and the issue of Israel and Palestine, I don't regret for a minute the stand that I took. And I believe that still in this country, in the United States of America, that when you stand strong for the values you believe in, and when you stand strong in defense of others, and when you stand together as a group, that's key. As a party, we need to stand together, that people will take notice, that they will join you, that they will rise up, and that we will get the due attention and the credit through those efforts, concerted efforts, that we deserve. Now, that's a values discussion. Strategy discussion, which is an important part of this, is that you need to build relationships with the media. This is something that I've done as a concerted effort in my time as a school board member and in my time chairing the Mahoning County Green Party. I know all the local members of the media by name. They know to call me when something happens, and I know how to put together a press release about what we're doing so that they know what's happening when it happens. I think we need workshops all across this country for Green parties to acquire that skills, for members of the party to be mobilized with those skills so that at a moment's notice when something happens that affects the public's rights, they can respond in a way that the media is going to give them that due attention. And those efforts have been years in the works for me personally and for my fellow party members, such that when I decided to launch an exploratory committee for this race, they actually published about it before we actually called the meeting. They were already looking at the Facebook page and immediately hit the news. Something that usually doesn't happen for Greens, but it didn't happen by happenstance. It happened because we invested years and years of connections with the media. And likewise, perhaps one of the nicest calls I've gotten recently came from a member of the media. When the unfortunate thing happened with the loss of my job through my activism, I got a lovely call from a member of the media, not about anything being covered in the news, but she called simply to say, I know you're an honest guy. I know you stand up for what you believe in, and I'm so sorry that that happened to you, and that I'll be praying for you. As much as people want to malign the media, they're human beings too. And this race in 2020, and the smaller races happening all across the country, it's going to be about building human connections. The better you are at building those human connections and navigating those connections, the better you will be at getting your message out at its purest and at its greatest impact.
As an inveterate civil disobedient, I can tell you that getting attention is part of what you're doing from the media, from the public. But you gotta be smart about it. You know, should candidates and politicians do it? Depends. Caroline Lucas, you know, the Green member of Parliament in the UK, she's been arrested in civil disobedience. I sat outside Governor Cuomo's office while I was running against him over stopping all new fossil fuel infrastructure in the state, going to 100% clean energy by 2030. And it gave me attention, made a nice contrast with his other challenger inside the Democratic Party, Cynthia Nixon, who went to the march but not to the civil disobedience. So I think it's a case by case, but you do want to bring attention. But that's not enough. It's got to be part of the whole strategy. There's symbolic civil disobedience, and then there's where you've got a strategy of raising the stakes, raising the cost to the power structure, or whoever your organizing target is. And I think we did that in the case of a gas storage facility at Seneca Lake, which threatened to pollute the whole lake with drinking water for hundreds of thousands of upstate people, upstate New York people. And I was part of a military veterans blockade, and we were putting wave after wave of blockade, different kind of groups. And we filled up that little town court, and we persuaded the people around it, the very conservative Republicans who thought this was good business. We persuaded them, it's not good business to deal with us because it costs a lot. It's not good business because this gas is a real danger. And this is wine country, tourist country, the Finger Lakes. So we raised the stakes by getting the nonviolent direct action to scale. In another case I was involved in, the Clamshell Alliance, I mentioned that we got 1,414 people arrested in 1977, occupying a nuclear power plant site. And this right-wing cracker from Georgia, who happened to be the governor of New York, and you listen to him and you think, what's this guy being governor of New York? But the Manchester Union leader had a lot of sway. And he insisted, after the Attorney General, who was David Souter, who became Supreme Court Justice, was releasing those of us who were from New Hampshire. So out of 1,414, about 200 was released. That's 1,200 put National Guard armies for 10 days. So it was on the cover of Time, Newsweek, all the mass media, what's happening to all these people, what's nuclear power set on power. When we started our civil disobedience, public opinion, only 7% agreed with us that this plant should not be built. 2 years later, it was 70%. And it's not because, you know, the radicals occupied the site. It's because after we got people's attention, we went to town meetings, which are grassroots democratic forums they have in New Hampshire. And we brought resolutions. And the utility, you know, was like multiplying its capital base by, I forget how much, like 50 times. And you know, nobody could afford to finance it, was to have the ratepayers pay ahead of time for a plant we didn't even know would work. It's called construction works in progress. So we took it to town meeting, us crazy radicals, and these rock-ribbed Republicans said, yep, you're right. We don't want to pay for this thing until we don't know it. We passed town meeting resolutions all over the state, and that's why public opinion. So the civil disobedience was connected to another campaign, which was basically direct democracy, which we have in some of the parts of the room that have town meetings. And Darren is Dario, man, I don't want to call you Darren. You know, in my mind, Dario is right that you got to cultivate the relationships with the journalists. One thing I would say is always respond. I don't care if it's Fox or whoever, always give your point of view, you know, at least once. So, or then you can call them if they don't print your point of view or state your point of view. If they ask you don't say, oh, they're biased against me, I'm not gonna deal with them. No, you always deal with them. And in these releases, be interesting, give them real meat and substance. I mean, we got an advantage, we actually talk about issues. The Democrats and Republicans try to avoid taking a stance because they might hurt somebody's feelings. So we have an advantage there. And Ian, I think we can take credit for the Green New Deal and get credit. In New York, I wrote an op-ed to what's called the Gotham Gazette. It's sort of the political class read in New York City. And I said, the Green New Deal New York needs. Because as was mentioned, Andrew Cuomo's branding is planned to flood the state with frack gas. Yes, we got a ban. Unfortunately, I apologize, they're importing it from Pennsylvania. They're building frack gas power plants, and he's subsidizing, he's already got an $8 billion subsidy to Exelon for 3 nukes upstate. And again, apologies to Pennsylvania, and I know Anita Rios will talk about that in Ohio later. Apologies for us setting a bad example. So I said, he's using the label Green New Deal and some offshore wind and political things to cover up this plan, which is an environmental disaster. So I titled it, The Green New Deal New York Deserves, and the publisher added to it from the original source. So we use it.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, the question I heard, because I had a little technical difficulty, is it appropriate or is it impactful to get arrested? Was that the question?
Yeah, that's right, to advance attention to the Green Party.
Okay. Every action we take as Green has to be part of a story that we're telling to save our planet. So if the arrest is a part of something that's ongoing, if you have the context, if you have support to cover the bail, don't just show up and get arrested. But I know here in California with Black Lives Matter, it's coordinated. Whatever we do, it's coordinated, and we have to support. So whatever actions and reactions come from that arrest, you are not personally drained by it, your finances aren't impacted, but it has to be part of a story. So I would say, yes, if it's part of a story that's supporting, that you have to support, it's just planned, thought about, and organized. It can, as I heard, kind of sketchily, the relationships that you have with media, the relationships you have with your support base, and definitely with the Green Party. But if it's a part of a coordinated action, as part of a greater story, yes, get arrested. Some of the greatest people in our movement have been arrested. Thanks for your question.
So I want to tackle these separately. So in 2018, when I ran for governor, we were lucky enough to have someone in the Maryland Green Party who was I can't say too much about it, but basically for a very, very high level big union, she did media relations. And I think if you take a look at the thing I handed out earlier, you'll see that a couple of things that we got into during that time was Maryland Public Television, ABC, NBC, and the Washington Post, which we were really, really proud of. We got a full page spread in the Washington Post magazine on all 24 candidates running in Maryland. And that was wonderful, really, really amazing to see. But one thing that's not on here is the Baltimore Sun. Baltimore Sun, me and my running mate, Randy Chambers, both from Baltimore, known Black Panther, known agitator in the area, famously fed the mayor dog food once when he refused to allow greater public housing, greater nutritional assistance program back in the 60s, and they refused to cover the race. I take that back. They actually did cover the race just this past week, and they wrote how we lost ballot access. First time I saw the Baltimore Sun cover us in months. So I'm not
I think that, in politics, it's a numbers game. When you're out there handing stuff to people on the street, if you're leafleting or something, or going door to door, one of the things they tell you to do is, it's a numbers game. You can't stand there and argue with someone who's never going to come around to your side and not going to be a voter. You're going to waste hours of your time. So I sort of see the media relationship as something very similar to that. You cast a wide net, you see who will bite. Washington Post casting, actually biting on a Green Party story was ridiculous. We were blown away by this. But there was a reporter over there that pitched this article and pitched this article and pitched this article and did the work for us. Our own local paper, Baltimore Sun, wouldn't cover us. So it's really the same kind of, and this is part of what my campaign is all about. I want to make sure people understand the good organizing fundamentals of running a campaign. It's a numbers game. I mean, if you want to stand there and argue with every single person you see and how wrong they are, and we got to be anti-capitalist right away, you're not going to win an election. We got to be out there talking to every single person that hasn't heard about your pitch or the Green Party. Someone hasn't heard about the Green Party, good. It's an opportunity for you to get a new vision to their face and their platform, whether that's a reporter, whether it's a voter. Now, I will say this too. Getting arrested. Would I randomly get arrested? No, I think that's a little ridiculous. Would I get arrested for a specific reason or for a cause, maybe even something regarding a debate or something like that? Look, there are communities, Jill Stein famously called them frontline communities. I think they're just communities that are doing amazing work on the front lines, and that the Green Party has not done the best job of organizing with them in solidarity with. One of the things that I do is when I get elected to an office and I see someone that needs our help and they want to be an ally of the Green Party, is we bring in the resources to them. We make sure that they understand that we in the Green Party, we're not here to tell your story, you're here to tell your story. We're here to provide whatever backup we can with the resources of the party, whether it's lawyers, whether it's door knockers, whether it's volunteers, whether people that want to go to protests. Freddie Gray was, famously killed by the police in Baltimore City, and we had months of protests around him right after Occupy happened pretty much too. So, there's definitely times to be in solidarity with the community, but it's unbelievably important, and I think the Green Party does a better job of this than a lot of the socialist groups. I'm just going to come right out and say it. It's unbelievably important to not put ourselves first. Our job is to make sure that activists and organizers that have been on the front lines, that have been kicked in the teeth by the Democratic Party and the Republicans, feel like finally they have a home, where they can speak the language they want to speak to the people they want to represent. And that's why I'm in this race, to make sure that they feel like there's real leadership here that's not going to run all over them and use them as a token, but actually help get them elected, help them make the change they want to see in their community. And if that means putting our bodies on the line, I hear about these stories from back in the day, from my friend Reverend Andy Chambers. They remind me a lot of your stories now, I gotta say. Because, I wasn't there at the time when, the Communist Labour Party and National Welfare Rights, which I am a member of now, National Welfare Rights has restarted, I'm a member of that, through the Cornelius campaign, a couple other groups. I wasn't there when the Panthers would, if someone gets kicked out of their house for an eviction, they would come right in, open the door, get them right back into the house. And you're damn right you're putting your body on the line for that. But you know what? Reverend Chambers' case, she had 25 kids. What are they going to do, sleep on the street? So she's damn right she took the house and she, risked her own body and the bodies of all her comrades. So I think that's the goal of the Green Party right there. We have to take direction from the communities on the front line. We have to let them know that we're here to back them up in whatever they want to do. And, it's a lot easier for us to spend a night in jail than I think it is for them. If they even make it that far, if the cops come and see a black body, and maybe do something we don't even want to think about. So that's the sort of work that I've done, and that's the sort of work that I want to bring to every single community, every single state, every single territory across the country.
And I want to thank everybody that can join in person and also over the phone. This was a great way to get everybody together. I think we're a little bit out of time here. We've got a panel that's supposed to start at 1, so I think we'll probably bump that back to 1:15. Can we just do another round of applause for everybody? Very great. I guess I'll do call the order around 1:15 mark. You can put the schedule up on the screen, and thanks everybody. We'll get back to you shortly.